Welcome back to another episode of MJ's Progress Not Perfection. Today's guest is Travis. He wrote a book called My Life with Karma. It is now on Amazon. You can find it inside the description right here. Definitely go check it out. Karma, you're going to find out a lot about. It's not just what you think it is, it's actually the name of his dog that he rescued. Um, he was an ex-cop that got caught up on drugs, and cops do not treat ex-cops kindly. That's all I gotta say. It's a long one, strap in, but it's a very good conversation with somebody who's been through it, and he's still standing, brain injuries and all. And you're gonna hear all about where they came from very shortly. Welcome, Travis. I appreciate you coming on, man.
Thanks for having me on, JD.
So now, just to give some background, you used to be a cop.
Yeah, that's correct. So I did dignitary protection for one of Wisconsin's governors for about 2 years. Then I worked as a security supervisor for UW-Madison.
Okay. All right. So, like, is that like Capitol Police or something like that? Isn't Madison the capital or something like that?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
So I worked for Capitol Police first and then UW Police after that.
Okay. And what? Now you were a drug addict too while you were a cop.
Yeah, that's correct.
All right. Now, what got you into drugs in the first place? Because usually, cops, they don't want to do drugs. So.
Yeah, no, exactly. So it was a doctor's script that got me hooked. I was huge into powerlifting. So while I was protecting the governor, I was trying to qualify for worlds in powerlifting. Basically, what happened was training one day, I injured L4 and L5, went to a walk-in, and they gave me just a plethora of pills. Basically, I got set up on Oxy, a Dodolac, and then some other muscle relaxant.
Like
So
stomas and shit, like
yeah,
all that kind of stuff.
exactly. Yep,
Yeah.
yep.
Yeah, that was like a
So
high school thing for me. um,
gotcha.
so when was this? What year was this? Like when you got hurt and like they gave you Oxy? Because
Oh
I feel like
man.
that would have been like the mid 2000s. Like that was when
Yeah,
they were
it
really
would have been
pushing it.
like, yeah, actually it was a little later than that. I think around 2009.
Okay. Yeah,
So yeah.
that makes sense. I got really heavy into Oxy in October 2008.
Okay.
That's like when I like discovered it. You know what I mean? Like when you
Oh
take
yeah.
a couple tens and then you're off to the races and then you just want, more and more and more. Because I think I started with Percocets, the 10 milligram perks, and then I went right into 30 milligram Roxycodones, and I stuck with them for 9.5 years,
Yeah.
like daily. So but obviously you were taking them as prescribed, I'm sure, right off the bat.
Yeah, at first, for sure. So, first 30 days, no big deal, like took them as prescribed. Um, I think it was that second window, like that kind of 30 to 60, where I started doubling up on them, just because I wasn't getting that same effect. And I was still trying to train through it. So the whole time I was still lifting. And not obviously not what you want to do with a back injury, but I was so determined. Like I was looking at it like this is my shot to go to Worlds, really kind of make a name for myself. And I didn't want anything else more. So I said, fuck it. I'm like, I'm just gonna roll the dice and see how my back holds up. So basically after 90 days they told me, dude, you got to go see a doctor. Like we're pretty much, you have to go check in with your primary, let them know what's going on. We're not going to give you more pills. So instead of doing that, I doctor shopped and I just went to a different walk-in, told them, hey, here's what's going on with my back, I have really bad sciatica. And right away they gave me a script. So I was like, well, I can just bounce around, I don't need to essentially worry about going to my doctor, getting surgery. I can just do it my way. And that's when things started to go downhill.
Yeah, doctor shopping, for those who don't know, was extremely easy in the late 2000s, early
Yeah.
2010s. I think around 2013-ish is when they started like putting a hammer down with the pharmacies, started talking to each other
Yep.
and making sure that, you couldn't do that. Because I was doctor shopping in 2012,
Okay.
still, and I was able to do that for like an entire year. And then, well, then my main doctor I was going to was shady, and they only took cash,
Oh,
insurance
wow.
isn't. insurance isn't covered there. It's only a cash. It's like $150, and you're sitting around a waiting room, a living room basically of a house, and everyone's addicts. You look around, no one's there that needs pills for pills.
Yeah.
We're all there for the same thing, and there's no way they can see 30 people in an hour unless they're just writing scripts and then you're walking out the door.
Oh yeah, it's got to be a revolving door at that point in time. That's the
Yeah.
only way they're going to be doing it. Yeah.
Yeah, it was probably easy for the cops to watch them, be like, all right, well, they just saw 20 patients in the last hour. How is that?
Yeah. Right.
With two
Exactly,
guys.
bro. That's
Like,
exactly it.
they end up getting shut down. I remember I got the phone call from the nurse there, like, hey, you have one script waiting for you, and it's going to be your last one. You better come down and grab it before the cops take it.
Oh
Like,
damn. So she gave you a heads up.
yeah.
Okay.
And because I'd been there, monthly for like a year and a half.
Okay.
And so she knew me, and because I had to change around appointments all the time. I'm a personable guy, so
Okay.
I chat up everybody. And so yeah, she called and said, "Hey, I know you have an appointment next week, but like you got to get down here because we're about to shut down. The cops just arrested like one of the owners." Fuck,
Yeah.
but that wasn't my only source of pills. That was just my one source. That was
Okay.
like the first source, and then I would have to rummage from there. Now, okay, so it's 2009, so you're doctor shopping now, and you're
Yeah.
still a cop.
Exactly.
You're still a
Yep.
cop. You're still lifting. Are you with your wife then? Because you're
Yeah.
married now.
Yeah. So I was. Yep. So not that was my first wife that I
Okay.
was with at that. And like our relationship, it was. I don't know, man. It was one of those relationships where we got together in college and we worked in college during that kind of lifestyle. And then once we were out of college, it was like, shit, we're not compatible. Like, she wanted to go to the barn every day to ride her horse. And I was pretty much like, okay, you need to get a job. Like, we just didn't work off the bat. And it became more like two friends living together than an actual marriage. So as soon as I started to show signs of problems, like for example, she called my best friend and thought I had an issue with caffeine. Well, of course, I was streamlining caffeine because I was trying to counter effect the oxy and still lift on it. So even back then, I was like taking pre-workout mixed with like monsters, shit like that, just to be picked up enough that
Yeah.
I wasn't like on the nod.
You were basically doing speedballs without fucking meth. You know
That's
what I mean?
exactly it. Yep.
You were doing speedballs, and
Yeah.
I was doing that with Coke and mixing that with Coke and Oxy, like not Coca-Cola.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
I mean, I
Exactly, man.
drank a shitload of that too. That's my go-to, but still,
Yeah.
like so she thought you were addicted to caffeine.
Yeah, for sure. She said she thought I had a caffeine problem and maybe a slight problem with alcohol, but that was all she really knew.
Now, what Oxy were they giving you? Because there's so many different, you know what I mean? Like,
Oh, shit. I know I started with 10s and I think I moved to I peaked at like 30s, I think.
okay, the blue
So,
ones.
yeah, the blue ones.
Yeah, the
Those
blues.
were
Yeah.
my yeah.
That was mine, the Roxycodone, whatever you want to call them. We call them Roxy's
Yep.
Blues, whatever you want to call them. But
Yep.
those little blue 30 milligrams, that was my life for 9.5 years. Yeah,
Exactly.
and I never did heroin because I loved doing, the pills so much. I was addicted to sniffing as much as I was to the pills,
Yep.
behaviors and shit. Now, so you're on the 30s and you're working as a cop still. You're
Yeah.
lifting now, but do you have a partner when you're a Capitol cop? Do you guys have partners or are you solo out there?
No, no, so solo. And I worked, so it didn't get, when I was a Capital cop, it wasn't bad. It was really bad when I was at UW. Like Capital, I just kind of, I just started using and I was still using at that time, like as prescribed. At UW, because I switched jobs, that's where, I, dude, I was a mess right off the bat. And essentially, at first, I was in an office space where I had shared space. So I wasn't really as blatant about using there. Like I would pop a couple pills before I went into work, take some more over lunch, and then do that again, like at around 3 o'clock, and then go lift, and then take more pills. I mean, that was my day. And then it got to the point where I wasn't getting the same effect out of it. So then I was literally popping one, crushing one and snorting it off my desk at work. That's like before anyone else even came into the building.
Yeah.
That was just to start my day. That was just to even feel like remotely normal and remotely decent enough to be like, okay, now I can function.
Because at some point, I, I'm just shooting in the dark because of experience. They woke you up. You didn't need
Yeah.
the caffeine because as soon as you did a line of a 30, you were awake.
Yep.
You know,
Exactly.
that was the difference. Like, it's so funny that the addicts like understand it because and if you're not an addict, you take a 30, you're gonna be knocked out in 5 minutes.
Exactly.
But when you're an addict, you sniff that 30, you are wide awake. You're cleaning, you're good to go. Like you have the energy, you're ready. So I'm not even surprised by that. Just because I know from experience. Like, so it was what 2011 when you transferred to UW.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay, and now you're just crushing them and sniffing them. Now it's a problem.
Yeah, now it's a big problem. And I didn't, to be real with you, I didn't even realize how big of a problem it was. It was just like I was in that routine, in that mindset, and I'm just like, well, this is what I have to do to function. And then I kept writing it off as, well, as long as I can maintain my job, I'm good. Like
Yeah,
that was like the level in my head that I was like, okay, as long as I'm going to work every day, collecting a paycheck, I'm fine. I don't need to worry about it. Then eventually I got cut off. And that's where things got really fucking sketchy. So in Wisconsin, where I live in Madison, like UW Health is huge. So the first bridge I burnt was UW Health. They ended up putting a note in my chart saying, okay, like this guy hasn't gotten help for this back problem in like a year and a half, almost 2 years at that point in time. I got flagged is really what it came down to. Then I don't know how it happened, but I got flagged at a Walgreens somehow. So that
Walgreens
was like,
was
yeah,
Walgreens was the first one to shut down.
yep,
Walgreens was the first one out of all the pharmacies to be like, no, we're not going to fill your script. And it was everywhere for Walgreens. Like I'm telling you, like we had to go to Walmart, or CVS, and see,
CVS and Walmart, yep,
yeah, those were the go-tos that would fill your script. But Walgreens, they would send us out the door. They wouldn't even fill my Xanax at Walgreens anymore.
oh wow,
So they were shutting down. That was across the board in like 2012, roughly. I think it was when they started
okay,
shutting down because there was a Walgreens on this corner and a CVS here, and then a Walmart down here. So, but it was easy to pull into the Walgreens and deal with them, then go to CVS. So we would go there, and then they were like, "Yeah, we're not going to fill that anymore unless you have cancer." Like straight
oh
up,
wow,
they're like,
damn,
we're not filling it unless they're cancer patients. Sorry." And they could make that call. They were allowed to. They were reserving the ones that they got for the patients that they had, and they would only order a certain amount, and they'd be reserved for their patients each month, so they wouldn't give us any. But CVS and especially Walmart really didn't give a shit. They're like, oh yeah, you need 180 30s and 120 Xanax. That makes sense for a 25-year-old. Here's your script, sir. Have a nice day.
exactly,
Like really. All right, so now you're cut off.
yep.
Now, so like I know what I did. What did you do?
Okay, so I had a connection through the gym, a guy I lifted with, and he's like, "Well, I can get you some Vicodin to hold you over." And I'm like, "Okay, sure." Like it was basically whatever I can get, I'm gonna take. And so I think I got 30, I don't remember. I just know it was like 30 some milligrams of Vicodin, and I was happy for about 15 days. Then he's like, "Well, it wasn't GoodRx, it was through something else." He was able to get some generic shit from Canada that was vet grade. So that was the next thing I moved to. I moved right into like this veterinary grade, non-coated pills that were, I think they were giving them dogs post surgery. And those did not have the same kind of pop at all. So I was doing like
Yeah,
6 to 8 of those at a time.
they're meant for a
And
50 to 100 pound dog. You know what I mean? But
exactly.
yeah,
Yeah, exactly. So I was doing those, trying to get by. And then with the connection that I had to the horses, I was also doing Butte, which is like horse aspirin. I would take 1/8 of the dose that they would give to a horse, and I'd take that orally and then chase that with alcohol because it was super bitter, just tastes like hell, and it was really hard to keep down. So I did that I don't know how long I did that. Couple months at least. And this, I mean, wheels are starting to fall off. My work at or like works, I don't know. It was weird because I worked with cops every day and no one ever said shit.
That's what
And
I was
here I
wondering.
am.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I
I
was saying.
mean,
Do you have a
here.
partner? Because a partner would have seen,
Oh yeah,
I would hope.
yeah, yeah. And they actually promoted me at work, moved me to my own office, which was like a great. So now I'm out of sight, out of mind, just completely wrecked, barely getting shit in. And then the problem was the bills started piling up. So I'm paying $300. I was paying $300 or $600. I think $600 at the time. Basically, I was getting 180 pills of that vet grade stuff for 600. Well, I was blowing through that. Like at first, it was like, oh, that will last me a month. No, it lasts me like a couple weeks.
Yeah.
And then the next thing I know, I have to re-up. Well, on at the time, I was making 19.95 an hour. So decent, but not enough to support a house, a wife, and a habit.
No.
So I started stealing. At the gym I went to, I actually, well, without implicating anyone else, I had a connection there where I was getting credit card information and then moving that along to someone else. And essentially, I did that for 2 or 3 months until I got caught. And then each one of those charges came with two charges, one for false representation and then one for theft. And they're all misdemeanors at the time. So I ended up with like 14 misdemeanors when I finally got busted one day. Essentially, I walked into work and my lieutenant called me into his office. I was like, okay, shit, this isn't good. But I hadn't even taken my pills yet. So I was like, hey, in my mind, I'm thinking to myself, like, fuck, dude, I still got to take my pills.
I'm
Like,
withdrawing.
yeah, I was worried about the lieutenant, but I was more worried that I hadn't taken my shit yet. So I get called into his office. Here's a detective in plain clothes and two city cops. And I'm like, at that point in time, I'm like, yeah, I know I'm fucked. Like, so basically they did the whole thing, like laid down this file they had on me, tried to get me to talk, and I'm like, okay, I'm not going to tell you shit. I know how this goes. You're not going to help me out. Like anything I say is just going to be used against me. You're not going to put in a word with the DA. Like, don't give me that shit. So when I got cuffed, the guy didn't double lock or safety lock my cuffs. So the whole time to jail, my cuffs tightened up. So by the time I got to jail, my hands were purple and I ended up with a radial neuropathy in one of my wrists just from that experience. Like, I mean, they definitely being a cop and then getting arrested is probably one of the worst things because like they look at it like you betray the badge, you betray the blue. And it's like, man, I'm a drug addict that needs help that went off the rails pretty damn fast. And it just didn't like no one else looked at me that way. It was like instantly I was that Mariah just cut off from everybody. So everyone I knew at work, like I couldn't, first of all, I couldn't talk to because they were cops. Second of all, my attorney's like, yeah, you know, these, even if they were your friends, they're not your friends now. So pretty much,
Nothing with police unions or anything, because I gotta see
uh,
police unions like doing some ridiculous shit all the time to like help
dude,
out cops from like killing fucking people.
yep.
And here you are with misdemeanors, and they're looking at you like you're just some piece of shit drug addict.
Yeah, exactly. And here's the reason why. So when I protected the governor, I was not union, because of the information we were privy to with the governor. Like, so we couldn't unionize. I forget what it was called, but basically we weren't represented. And then when I transferred to UW, my position was non-sworn, so essentially I wasn't carrying a firearm.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Okay,
so
that makes sense then. And they had no like, they didn't want to help. They just
no,
wanted to
not at
wear you
all.
out. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
not like we're
like
gonna get you help and get you straightened out, Travis. Like get you back on the right track. None of that.
no, it was like, dude, we're gonna throw you under the bus and make an example out of you. So the next the next person that comes along, is going to be scared straight. I mean, that was their approach.
What year was this?
That would have been sometime between 2011 and 2012.
Okay, so it's safe to say that was the last time you were a cop.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay, just a guess. Just a guess.
Yeah.
So what happened with those misdemeanors and all that? What ended up coming
So
from
I
that?
ended up pleading out to them. Served time in jail, same county that I was a cop in. That was interesting. Basically had to hide my identity while I was there because I was worried I was gonna run into someone. I mean, shit, I didn't make that many arrests in my career, like working for the governor.
Yeah.
But I mean, you know, like there was enough that it was like, yeah, being in this jail, and if it was known I was a cop in Madison, not great. So basically, what happened between the time I was a cop and the time that I went to jail, I got a job as a server in a restaurant. Didn't, started an outpatient treatment, and pretty much just and started going to meetings. So it was like, okay, I'm gonna try to get my life together, try to get my shit back on track. And right around that time, my first wife was like, yeah, I'm gonna file for divorce. So one day, yeah, which I
Yeah.
understood. It was like, okay, the shittiest thing was one day I came home from working a double at the restaurant and just everything was gone. Like she had moved out while I was at work. Um,
And this was
you know,
post jail.
this is pre-jail. This is
This
while
is
I'm
like
like,
in the hearings and all that
yep,
shit. Okay,
yeah,
that was the
exactly.
process. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so you
So
just came home and you're fucking gone.
yep, everything's
Yeah.
gone. Like,
Yep.
yeah, pretty much house is empty. There's like I have a picture on my Facebook because it was like just this little footstool in the middle of the room. That's all that was left. And I was like, I called it my bachelor couch because it's like, dude, this is my life now. Like, that's it.
I feel
So
like if that were me, I would have then had given myself permission to go get high again.
I wanted to. I really did. What I've left out, so during the chaos and everything, when I connected with that drug dealer, I mean, we ended up lifting with each other at the gym too. So it was kind of a fucked up relationship that I had with him. Because
Most
at
people
times,
have weird, strong relationships with their dealers where like you become buddies.
yeah, and that's what I had going on. It was like we were buddies, but then in the same sense, he'd flip that switch where it was like he became the businessman. Like, okay, so now let's talk, and that
Yeah.
was it. Well, anyway, so he found out while we were lifting one day that I love dogs. I've always loved dogs. Always grew up with dogs, and he told me he's like, yeah, I know this guy. He's got this house and he's got a dog chained out front. I'm not sure if it's a pity, what it is, but I know you like dogs, and this dog definitely needs some help, is suffering, whatever. He didn't know too much about it, but he had an address for me, and I'm like, one Saturday, I decided to go check it out. I'm like, okay, I'll swing out there, see what's going on with this dog, and yeah, no intention of bringing it home. As soon as I met the dog, she was cool. She didn't growl at me right away, but was totally emaciated, just like probably 30 some pounds, torn up, ears were shredded, just bleeding both front paws, looked like shit. Like there was a bowl flipped over, you know what I mean? Should have had water, didn't have water. Just pretty much anything horrible you could do to a dog was done to this animal. So I walked up to the house, and at this time I still have the cop bravado going on. So I bang on the door and no one answers. I bang on the door again and they're obviously not going to answer. So I go back, look at the dog again, and made a decision. I'm like, well, this dog's going to fucking die if I leave it here. So I went back to this hardware store that I passed on the way to the house. Just got the biggest letter I could find. Came back, knocked on the door again, and I let the people know, I'm like, hey, I'm going to take your dog. So either
They
you can
answered?
come out.
Oh,
No,
you were
because I
yelling.
saw him do like
Uh,
this little peek thing. Oh, yeah. So I knew they were right there and I knew people could hear me. So I just said, I'm like, I have money if you need money. I'm like, but I'm taking your dog. and no one ever came to the door. So I was like, fuck it. Went back to the tree. And at that point in time, as I got closer, I still remember like she growled at me, kind of gave me like a little warning snap. I was like, all right, I need to slow my roll. Baited her with like some McDonald's French fries, pretty much distracted her, and was able to rescue this dog. So she became like, as my wife kind of bailed out of the picture, all my focus when I wasn't using was just on rehabilitating this animal. So she became my rock through when I wanted to use. What I did was I'd take her on a walk. And you know how, like, if you have a conversation with a sponsor, for example, like I would have those kind of conversations with the dog as I'm walking, like,
Yep.
and just kind of tell on myself. And it helped. It really did. It helped keep me at least from using. And that
Yeah.
was the biggest thing.
Yeah.
So,
Pets. Yeah. My dog saved me from suicide. Having my
okay.
dog kept me from committing suicide like a dozen times. You
Yep.
know, I would always do the whole, oh, it's raining now. I'll take my car into a tree, look like an accident. You know, I'll go out for smokes and I'll come back. And every time I went to go do it, I thought, what's going to happen to Zoe? How long is it going to take till someone finds Zoe in the house? How long till she gets food or gets to go to the bathroom because she's such a good dog, she won't piss her shit in the house, you
Yep.
know? And that kept me from doing it every single time. And when I went to rehab, I gave her to my parents to watch for me because they have like another dog that's her age and they have a fenced in yard. And when I got back from rehab, I was feeling so good, and I still am, that I said, just please keep her there. I was like,
Yeah.
I don't want to put her into an apartment with me and have her stuffed up. As much as I would love to cuddle with her every night, like she saved my life. She deserves to have a big yard to run around in until the day she dies now. So
Exactly.
she served her purpose for me, and
Yeah.
now I can let her be happy. My mom feeds them fucking scrambled eggs every morning and shit. She's eating good, living good, you know. So, all right. So now you have this dog, and the
Yep.
dog is, you know, basically your sponsor, and it's basically your go-to and your rock. Um,
Exactly.
so what's going on now? It's like 2012. You're still waiting to
Yep.
go to jail.
Still waiting on jail. Which is, man, that's, I don't know how it is for other people, but for me, like the anxiety during that time almost pushed me to using too. Like there were so many times where like, because all I could do was ruminate and like speculate, like what is this going to be like? I mean, going through police training, there's no manual for if you're a cop and you go to jail. Like no one talks about that kind of shit.
Yeah.
So it's just like, all right. So I'm picturing like any show I've seen on TV. I think Oz, if you remember that
I
one from
remember that show.
HBO.
Yep. Fucking A,
Yeah,
dude.
I'm thinking it's gonna be like that. I'm like, fuck, man, I'm dead in a week. Like,
Yeah.
there's no way this is just not gonna be good.
I was thinking
Um,
of The Departed when he goes to jail as a cop in the
okay,
beginning,
yes,
you know,
gotcha.
and how he has to be like, you know, in there as a cop and or an ex-cop or whatever. But obviously that was a totally different situation because they had his back.
Yeah,
Well, they kind of did. I mean, we all saw
yeah,
the movie.
exactly.
All right. So how long is like? Because that sentencing process can take a while sometimes.
Man,
Like,
I think the whole thing took about like somewhere between 6 and 9 months to get it
okay,
all worked out. So, yeah, and I ended up doing the first time I was in jail, I think I was there for 3 months in and then another 7 on house arrest.
where
So
did your
with
dog go?
she went to my mom's house.
Okay, good.
So kind
Okay.
of kind of like your mom, my mom similar setup, fenced in yard, loves animals, just took her in right away. And yeah, it was awesome. So,
That's good that you could at least, you know, go to your parents, you know, because a lot of
oh, for
us,
sure.
you know, in addiction, we lose everybody, you know,
Yeah.
and luckily it sounds like both of us were lucky enough to have some parents that were understanding and, you know, at least like sympathetic and wanting to help us and make sure that, you know, we do good. Some parents
Yeah.
completely turn their back, or some parents are in addiction too, and they don't know what the fuck to do. They're like, how can I
Yeah.
help you? I can't even help myself, you know?
Exactly. See, and I
So,
had that with my dad, man. Like my dad was an abusive alcoholic. He was a high school principal. I mean, would come home and just like literally beat the shit out of me when I was a kid. And I'd have no idea why. It was just either he had a bad day at work, didn't drink enough, drank too much. I mean, it could be any reason. So my mom grew up with that and with him being abusive and eventually left him. So I think when I went through my shit with addiction, she looked at it like, okay, this is her chance to like help her son.
Yeah,
Is really kind of, so she stepped up that way big time.
because yeah, you're part her.
Yeah,
Her
exactly.
husband, her ex-husband, your dad wasn't any parts of her. It was just a guy that she met and she had a kid with and was married to.
Yeah,
So you can let that go a lot easier in addiction and alcoholism. You can be like, all right, well, fucking see you, bro. You're not changing. But your son or your daughter, that's part of you still. You
yeah.
know. So, you still talk to your dad?
My dad died when I was 20. So he
Okay.
died of cirrhosis of the liver and kidneys.
Oh, I think
Yeah.
alcohol does that, doesn't
Yeah, yeah,
it? Well, I mean, how was that for you at 20? Because like you were in college at the time, I would imagine, and
yeah.
like I'm
Um,
sure it's confusing with him beating you. How long did he beat you? Like, how old were you last
man,
time?
last time I was probably like 15, maybe 16. And that's part of what got me into
I
weightlifting.
was just gonna
Seriously,
say,
was
because when you
yeah.
start lifting, because was it to protect yourself?
Yeah, it was to protect myself, my mom and my little brother too. I got a brother who's 4 years younger than me.
Okay.
So it was like being the oldest too, like I shielded him from a lot of shit. Like whenever my dad would get mad, it would always come down on me because I was the oldest one. So little brother would like typically dip out of the house on his bike, go to a friend's house, and then I get my ass kicked.
When did your mom finally leave him? How old were you?
Oh man, like 17.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
he like after he left, I mean, he hit the bottle extremely hard to the point, like I said, he was dead within
2 years.
2.5, yeah,
Yeah.
two
I
and a
mean,
half years.
drank himself into the fucking grave. It sounds. How old was he?
Yeah. 53. Yeah,
Yeah. I mean,
exactly.
alcohol is the most dangerous drug out there.
Oh,
Let's
hands
be
down.
real. Let's be
Yeah.
real. Like, it's as a pill addict, I can't imagine. Like, I'm an alcoholic. Yeah. Alcohol led me to pills. Alcohol stopped working for me when I was 22, and then I turned to pills instead every day. But like, I'm not powerless to alcohol. Like, I'm powerless to pills, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. I can
Oh, for
see
sure.
alcohol and be like, fuck that shit. But pills in front of me, a line in front of me, that's a harder thing for me to be like, so I can't imagine driving down streets or walking into a gas station to buy cigarettes and seeing like 30s behind the counter. Could you
No.
imagine having to like go out in public and like go past like a store that says come in and get oxys,
Oh,
or
there's
come,
no way. Yeah.
like so I give anybody that gets sober from alcohol, that's a true alcoholic, a real alcoholic as we call them. I give them so much fucking credit to be able to like to look at alcohol and say, nah, I'm done with it. Because like I can sit here and say, yeah, I'm done with it. I haven't had a sip in 18 months, but at the same time, alcohol didn't send me to rehab. I didn't lose control with alcohol. I wasn't unmanageable because of alcohol. My
Yeah.
life wasn't unraveling because of alcohol. Alcohol led me to pills to where, it unravels. But like, I can't imagine that, and
Yeah.
I'm so fucking lucky that, I'm lucky. I'm so glad that I can look back and be like, all right, well, at least it's pills and I can avoid them. I don't have to
That's
see
true.
them in 7-Eleven under the counter or,
Exactly.
in the
And
fucking
make those hard
freezer.
decisions all the time. Yeah, I feel
Yeah.
you.
Like I'll go into Sheets, you know what I mean? Like the, not the, like a convenience store around here, and they get
Okay.
cigarettes or like a drink or something like that. And they have, a section that's all like, alcohol. And
Yeah.
it's in there and it's the beers and all that kind of the grab and goes, the 16-ounce and 24-ounce cannons. And I'm always just thinking to myself, damn, like I'm so fucking lucky that I can look at that and be like, nah, I don't,
I'm
want
good.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
Exactly.
sometimes I see like a twisted tea and I'm like, that would taste good in the summertime. And then I'm like, but I don't know how to stop.
Yeah.
I don't know how. There's no, like we talked about before with more. I don't know how to stop, man. Once I start, like I can go a while once I get some momentum with stopping,
Yeah.
and I went 13 months without a sip of alcohol. And
Good for
then
you, man.
when I quit pills, I went into rehab and I went AA and all that, and I was really heavy into that. And then AA stopped me asking me to come because I was talking about cannabis in a positive way because I used cannabis in my recovery.
Okay.
And so they were just like, no, we don't want you to talk about it. Like, and you can't say alcohol. You have to
Fuck.
say, you can't say pills. You have to say alcohol. I'm like, I used to drive two
What is
hours.
that?
I used to drive 2 hours to Jersey to get pills and then back again, like each way,
Yeah.
2 hours. And so, like, I was like, you want me to sit here in a fucking meeting and talk about how I used to drive 2 hours to get alcohol because there was no alcohol locally and I didn't
No,
know
that's
anybody with
stupid as
alcohol?
shit.
That's
That's
stupid.
so
Like, I'm
stupid.
gonna
Yeah,
sound so insincere in my shares.
exactly.
So eventually they, I was LA, they were all about it. They were very liberal about it. They were like, yeah, man, talk about whatever. Just be here. We don't care. And then
Hmm.
in conservative PA, they're like, yeah, we don't want you to like brag about that. I'm like, I'm not fucking bragging. I'm just talking.
Yeah,
Like, and
exactly. You're like, I'm being
so,
real, saying what works for me.
yeah.
Yeah.
So at 13 months, I drank again, after they asked me to stop coming. And I didn't like alcoholically drink. Like my recovery date to me, if someone asked me, is still 4/25/18 from pills because that was when maybe unmanageable.
Yeah.
And then I drank here and there, pool parties, fucking dinners here and there, for 9 months. And it was like here and there, never a bad thing. I never got a DUI, never got in trouble, whatever. And then I woke up hungover on Leap Day of 2020. And I said to my wife, like, I'm done. I don't want to be hungover. Like, I drank a bottle of Jack last night. I shouldn't have drank a bottle of Jack last night. I'm done with alcohol again. And she was like, "Oh, I have a finally chance to. I can quit," because she was an alcoholic, a real alcoholic.
Okay.
So we quit together, and yesterday was 18 months without a drop of alcohol.
Hell yeah,
So
man.
yeah,
Congratulations to both of you.
thanks,
Seriously.
thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's fucking impressive.
right now I'm working on cutting out cannabis
Okay.
because I started noticing that like I overeat. You know what I
Ah,
mean? And I
yeah.
have my pancreas. I don't know about you. My pancreas is double the size right now because of my addiction.
Oh, I'm sure
Um,
mine's jacked
that
up.
yeah, I have pancreatitis all the time. Like last night, I was up until 4 a.m. in searing pain, because of my pancreas is double the size from 20 years of drinking and 10 years of pills.
Yeah.
So like, I even though I've been clean and sober for a while, it's still like shit creeps up.
Oh, for
But
sure. Yep.
so I'm afraid that like if I use cannabis, it helps me to sleep through it, but also I'll wake up and I'll fucking eat, which makes the pancreas worse.
Worse.
So now I'm just like, well, I'm just going to do like a tolerance break for like 30 days and then see how that works with my pancreas and all that shit. Because like, cannabis makes me think better. Like
Okay.
I think clear. I don't smoke it. Like I don't, because I was addicted to instant and more.
Yo.
Like the sniffing and I chugged. There was no like, oh, I'll just pop the pill and wait 45 minutes. No, I need it
No.
now. So when I went to cannabis, I wanted to change our relationship with cannabis. So I don't like to smoke. I like to use edibles, the little capsules even, and I just pop one with my blood pressure, and then like within a couple hours, I start to feel it, and it doesn't make me feel like high, but it makes me like think clearer, and I'm a less angry person.
Get it.
I have a fucking temper, but it never comes out because I'm, always medicated. But the last few days, it's definitely, it been an adjustment for my wife to get used to like what my temper can be, not towards her.
But just in general.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I almost got into a fight with somebody outside of our meeting center the other day because we are next to a bar. We
Oh,
are
wow.
next to a bar, and people come out there and they'll smoke outside of our
Smoke
meeting
outside.
center.
Yeah.
And I'll fuck with them. I'll be like, "Oh, you here for a meeting?" And I'll be like a Jehovah's Witness and like just bother the shit out of them about,
Yeah.
you coming to get sober.
Oh, yeah.
But I went to go walk out the door, and we white out our doors with paint so people can't see in to see who's in there.
Okay.
And I went to go open the door, and I hit some kid in the back. We're in a college town, and so I hit a kid in the back with the door, and I was like, "My bad, dude, but you're right in front of my door. Could you move?" And he just
Yeah.
like stared at me. So then like I smoked a cigarette out front of the building, and we're like our door is like in like a cubby kind of thing, like So
Yeah.
I walked back over to the door, and he's still standing right in front of it. And I'm like, "Hey man, could you like not be right in front of our door? We're open for business. Like I can't. You're
Yeah.
blocking our
You're
doorway."
not helping me out here, man.
He's
Yeah.
like, "I don't give a shit." I was like, "Okay, well I do because
Yeah.
people are trying to walk in and out, and you're blocking us. I'm not fucking blocking it." Said, "You are because you're standing right here." He goes, "All right, well then move me." I said, "I'm asking you politely to fucking move, dude, because I don't want to walk out here again and hit you with the door again." And he
Exactly.
looked at me like he wanted to hit me because
Okay.
I was like basically threatening him to hit him with the door.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Listen, It's not even me that I give a shit about. It's not you that I give a shit about. My wife has MS and she has a fucking cane. And if she tries to walk out this door and she hits you in the fucking back and she fucking falls backwards and gets hurt because you don't want to fucking move, then we're gonna have some big fucking problems, bro.
Yeah,
And
of
that's when
course.
he was like, well, I didn't know she was handicapped. I was like, it shouldn't fucking matter,
It
dude.
shouldn't matter. No,
It's a
it shouldn't
business.
matter
You're
at
not
all.
standing in front of the restaurant doors where people are walking in and out of. What's the difference? He's like, don't
Yeah,
worry, I'm not coming back here ever again. I said, good, dude, see
yeah,
ya. Like, get the
exactly.
fuck out of here. So, like, I could definitely feel, and I was high, not high, but like, I was medicated that day.
Yeah.
And it was still, like, thank God it wasn't today. I don't, if it was today,
Oh, for sure, man.
like,
I would have had you all jacked up.
yeah, but anyway, okay, so we're getting off track a little bit. It's all right. That's the whole point of this. All right, so now let me see where we're at. You're waiting for your sentence.
Yeah,
Now your dog goes to your mom's.
exactly.
You get sentenced to like 9 months.
Yup. I think 10 months total. Like I said, like 3 in, 7 on house arrest.
Okay, and then when did I don't think that you've been sober since 2012. No offense. I'm pretty sure you
No,
started getting high
no.
again.
Yup. Yeah. Like, so not getting high. I ended up, dude, drinking. So I basically, I stopped getting high, but then I started telling myself, well, I can drink. Like, I'll be okay if I drink. Like, and there was a bar. It was, and I'll always remember it. It was 5100. It was a mile from my house. So I'd go to this bar, hang out there, got like involved in a dart league, not because I played darts, but because it was a reason to go to the bar. It was like, all right. And so I was drinking while waiting for sentencing, while doing outpatient. And just couldn't, I could get like a few days tops. Like it would be like, oh, I have 2 days sober. I have, 3 days sober. And eventually ended up going to jail just kind of like that. Like it was like, okay, I think I hadn't had a drink maybe for 24 hours and went to jail. And that was my first time in. So then that 3 months in jail, got sober. That was how I did it initially. And then out of jail, I did well on the bracelet, man. That was one thing I can give myself credit for. I didn't have any issues. I actually got myself set up for grad school even while I was on the bracelet to go for community counseling. So
And for those who don't know, the bracelet is your house arrest bracelet.
yeah, exactly. Yep, thank you. Yeah. So did well with that, got off of it, but right when I got off of it, it was like I had met this girl well in recovery, and she liked to smoke, just liked to party, was kind of like, I'm here because I got in a car accident, don't really want to be here. And I was like, okay, well, you're good looking, I'm now divorced, like this will work out. So we started going out for a little while. We'd go out, drink, get all sorts of drunk and stupid, go back, hook up, and that was the relationship I had with her. Then one night I decided, oh, I should really preface this. So I'm bipolar. And I didn't know that, like, I
So
didn't find
wait,
out
you weren't
until,
medicated. You were
no,
bipolar and not medicated.
yes, exactly.
Okay, so
Yeah.
that's a huge difference.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. So I had no idea. Like I thought I suffered from like depression all my life, but never really recognized the manic highs. Like everyone thought I was just the fun guy. Like, oh, like when he goes out, he goes out. Like not realizing some of these were like myths of manic episodes.
What was the
So,
stressor? Because like I was engaged to somebody, she was bipolar and schizophrenic, and I know, and my current wife, I don't have a fucking thing for bipolar,
yeah,
but my wife's bipolar, and there's always a stressor,
yeah.
so
In my life, it was really, I think, the stress I put on myself. Like
okay.
especially having like the failed career, and then just like I put so much stress on myself to do recovery perfect. Like it was like I wanted to be a student of recovery. It was like everything that my counselor told me I did, and it was like I just looked at it like almost like school. I'm like, well, if I do this, I do this step, I do this, I work through the steps. I'm gonna be fine. I'm gonna like excel in recovery. And it was such a shitty way to kind of approach it because I wasn't all in. And without being all in, you're not going to make it happen for yourself.
Yeah.
So
You have
so
to shrink
really
your ego, not inflate your ego.
dude, thank you. Exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. So one night I'm super manic. I haven't slept in like a day and a half, almost 2 days, and it's like not quite midnight. I already took my whatever I was taking to sleep at the time. I don't know if it was like Lunesta, it was something. Um, and it wasn't working. So I went out to the garage, was working on some project that I hadn't touched in like who knows how many months. Just like a total like bipolar thing. Like all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I'm gonna pick this up, do this in the moment, like, and that just wasn't getting it done. So I'm like, fuck it, I'm gonna go to the bar. And I remember that night because they were running a Long Island special. So I got to the bar. I'm like, yeah, dude,
Oh, no.
exactly.
LATs were like so dangerous for me because you could just suck them down so quickly. And if
Yep.
you're friends with a bartender, they're gonna be heavy-handed too with the pours.
Yeah, and I'm in Wisconsin too, so straight up, it's heavy-handed to begin with.
Yeah.
And then after that, it was like, yeah. So I get to the bar around midnight, talk to some of the locals that I knew from being in there from time to time, and basically just started downing Long Islands. Like, I know how I'm going to sleep tonight. I'm going to take as many Long Islands down as I can before bar close. I think in my book I wrote I had six. I don't know. I probably had like 6 to 8 in 2 hours. Like, who knows? Like, you lose track. You don't count. You're just like, okay, I'm here. It's a concept. Like, and I was just giving it. Like, it's full go. Let's see how many we can get in. And after that, I drove home. On my way home, I crashed my car coming into my neighborhood, hit a curb, tried to drive off the curb, realized like the front clip by the tire was all fucked up. I'm like, okay, I'm not going to be able to drive this. Got out, kind of was like, okay, I got to collect my shit. Now walk home. Was like, I'm going to take a piss on this guy's grass first. Decided to go on the side of his house, pissed. Then I threw up. I don't know if I made myself throw up or if I just threw up. Who knows? Um, Wandering back to my car was like, oh, I'm gonna throw up again. Leaned up against a car in the driveway, set off a car alarm. So at that point in time, and I'm on probation. I should say that too, from being under house arrest. With the misdemeanor charges, I had 3 years probation. That's part of like,
Yeah.
yeah. So I'm on paper and set off this dude's car alarm, and I'm like drunken, stupid, like, oh shit, I gotta hide. Like, fuck. So
Yeah.
I hop into this other car that's parked in the neighbor's driveway. Just get in there, try to like hunker down. I hear this guy come outside. He's swearing like, "What the fuck, you fucking kids! I'm gonna fucking kill you!" All this shit. He's got a flashlight. He's walking around looking at his car. I'm trying to like hunker down in the seat. I'm 6 feet 220. Like, here I am trying to like get small. Not gonna happen.
Was it
Dude,
what kind of was it a mag light? Was
yeah,
it
yeah,
okay?
oh
I
yeah,
could I
oh
could
yeah.
just imagine a big mag light in his hand, like
Oh,
coming out.
giant,
Yeah.
like one of the big D cell ones. Yeah,
Yeah.
so dude sees me, comes over to the car, starts swearing at me, knows his neighbors, is like, get the fuck out of their car. And I'm like, no, man, I'm your neighbor. I live, and I was his neighbor. I live just up the street, but he's not having it. As I get out of the car, he said I lunged at him. I'm pretty sure I just took a drunken stumble. And he proceeded to hit me with the mag light. So I got cracked anywhere from 3 to 4 times with one of those big mag lights. Fractured my skull in 3 different places. This whole left side of my face is all titanium now. They had to
Wait.
rebuild that.
Wait, start that over again, because
Okay.
the lips caught off at the worst
Oh,
time for that.
okay.
Okay,
Okay.
so the guy comes out. He hit you. Start from he hit you 3 times.
Yeah, he hit me 3 times, basically as hard as he could with the mag light. got a hand up one of the times, but pretty much caught them all to the face. Ended up fracturing my skull in 3 different places. And like I said, this whole side of my head is titanium now. Like I have 3 titanium plates that hold everything together. Um, so I got knocked out, and then the
Is
worst
that
part is,
is that the
what?
brain injury that caused
Yeah,
disability? Okay.
yeah, that is. So basically, I'm out, I'm on the ground, and then in the police report it says he hit me one last time as hard as he could in the back of the head. And I'm pretty sure that's the one that did all damage on top of it. Yeah, I don't
Yeah, because
remember it.
it knocks
Yeah,
everything like fucking out
yeah,
of whack. Like,
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah,
It's like
yes,
jarring your brain this way 6 times and then one
yeah,
last and then yeah, man.
yeah.
Holy shit. So that's 2013?
Yeah, that's 2013.
Okay.
So,
Eh,
so I ended up, well, police come. I end up getting a disorderly conduct. And then at first they tried to say I was trying to steal the vehicle that I got in. Well, my lawyer got that tossed right away. He's like, dude, he wasn't trying to steal a vehicle. He was, yeah.
Yeah.
But disorderly conduct, which wouldn't have been that big of a deal if I wasn't on probation. But on probation, I just broke a ton of rules, fucked up, and with my history, once again, they're not going to do me any favors.
You
So
still wearing the ankle bracelet too during this?
no, 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 I'm
Oh,
off the
okay.
bracelet. So
Okay.
I successfully completed the bracelet, and it was weeks before I this happened. Um, so basically, I go to the hospital. They take me to the first hospital. I'm there for maybe 3, 4 hours, and they did an MRI, and they realized that brain or air had gotten to my brain. So now they're concerned about that. So then they took me to a different hospital that was better suited to basically deal with my condition. I had 2 surgeries, the one to put all the plates in, and then another one to expel the air from my brain. And they had to do something else with my mouth at that time too, because I like had fractured my skull so bad that I broke the roof of my mouth is really what it came down to. That's why sometimes I talk a little funnier, have a hard time, like I'll get caught up on words,
Yeah.
but
Well, that
yeah.
makes sense too because I mean, your whole entire like face and your head was just like jarring that like
Oh yeah.
and for anyone who's ever held a mag light, like that's going to do damage.
Oh,
That
for sure.
I mean, without a doubt, that's the reason why cops carry them, is so
That's
that you
exactly
can
it.
do damage with them. Let's be real. Like there's
Yeah.
small little flashlights that do plenty of great lighting up, but those mag lights can do damage too. Like I
Yeah.
remember when I was
Especially
delivering,
the big boys.
yeah, when I was delivering pizza back in the day, in high school, I would always carry one with me just in case because delivering at night. And I lived in an area that sometimes like I was right outside of Camden, New Jersey, and Camden has a lot of issues with crime and always
Yeah.
has. So like sometimes I'd be nervous or go into like a shady motel or you know what I mean, like, and yeah, the mag lights in my back of my jeans just in case like someone's gonna pull some shit because you'd never know what you're gonna come across when you're delivering pizza, especially in 2003.
Oh
When
yeah.
cell phones weren't even really a thing, and people didn't know where the fuck you were at all times like they do today. Like
Exactly.
now everybody has my location on my phone at all on their phones. And my parents, my wife, they can see where I'm at any time of the day,
Yep.
which is here at the meeting center.
Yeah.
I'm here fucking 12, 13 hours a day. So you get all those surgeries now, and does that get you to like stop drinking?
Well, so basically, I get the surgeries and I'm recovering in the hospital. I was in the hospital for 2 days before they came and got me, and this is from a traumatic brain injury. So like I remember my goal was to be able to get up, walk, that short distance to a hospital bathroom because they're in the same room,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and use the bathroom by myself. That was my goal that day, and that's the same day the sheriffs came and picked me up and took me to jail. So I went right from the hospital from the TBI to jail. Once I got to jail, they said I wasn't fit for general population, but they didn't have a medical wing. So they put me in SEG, which is, I mean, it's the same as their solitary confinement there. So I spent the next 7 days in SEG. I was allowed to make one phone call a day, and that was it.
Your dog
And
go back
basically,
with your mom again?
yeah, dog went back with my mom. And
Sorry, I'm a dog lover too,
yeah,
so
no, no,
I'm
no.
always gonna
Yeah,
continue.
yeah,
Like, keep hearing
yeah,
the
it was,
story for me because like
yo,
it's important to
yeah,
me.
yeah. As soon as basically my mom and little brother got word, they came, picked up the dog, got her taken care of. And here I am, man, trying to recover from a TBI back in jail. And that's what got me sober, got me clean, because I was like, shit, I not only could I have died, I mean, it was also, it was one of those things to be that far out of control and not even know, like, I mean, I knew, like, okay, I knew I was going out and I knew I wanted to drink, but like not to be, almost to feel like a passenger on board in your own body is where I was at, between the mania and the, using alcohol. Like, I just felt like I'm not the one driving this thing anymore.
Yeah.
So
Now,
yeah.
how no, so your stay for this one for the breaking into cars and whatever
Yeah.
it was that was a 7 day
No,
stay?
no, that was a long time. It was 7 days in SEG, and then, well, because I ended up getting revoked off probation, so the whole time that they were working through that, I was in. So I had to, while I was in jail, and I wrote about this in my book, I had to reteach myself how to write. That was one of the functions I lost. I had aphasia at the time, so I would get stuck on words
What's that?
when I was. Aphasia is essentially, a lot of stroke patients get it. Like,
Okay.
as you're trying to talk, you can see the word in your head, but you can't articulate it. Like, it won't come out. You just get
Okay.
stuck. That was one of the big things that I had to work through. That, learning to rewrite, and pretty much I did all my own jail PT. Just like I did almost, when you're a kindergartner, first grader, how you trace letters. I would sit there in magazines with the little shorty golf pencils and trace letters
Mm.
and try to just teach myself, like, okay, so that I could fill out a jail request slip. Like, that was one of the first things I was like so proud of myself I was able to do, was not have to have someone else fill out my request slip for me.
Yeah.
Sign my
Now,
name, things like that.
um, this is 2013. How long did you have to stay in for?
That time I was in, I believe, about 7 months.
Okay.
So,
And
and that,
have you been clean and sober since then?
yeah, I have.
Okay, congrats on that, man.
Thank
That's
you, man. Yeah,
are you about to hit 8 years then?
yeah, I'm creeping up on 8 years.
Do
So,
you go to meetings? Were you going to meetings in jail too? Because I know like that people bring meetings into jail all the time. So I wasn't sure. Were you hitting meetings in jail?
we didn't have meetings in jail. You could see the chaplain. That was the only thing you could, like, that was the closest to a meeting. So I'd
Okay.
see the chaplain, talk to him, and fortunately he had a little bit of AODA background. Like, I think it was either his wife or his daughter was an AODA counselor. So
Okay.
the guy would talk to me about, he'd be like, "Well, how are you doing in here?"
And for those that's
Yeah.
alcohol use disorder. For those like that's
Yeah.
another way of saying alcoholic for people that don't want to call themselves alcoholic. For
Yeah.
those listening that don't know what AUD is, um, um, we had a chaplain on a few weeks ago. Actually, a jail chaplain. He's been a chaplain
Okay.
for 32 years, and he's 32 years sober himself.
Oh,
Or he's been a
wow.
chaplain 27 years for the jail, but he's been sober 32 years down in Tennessee. And he wrote a book about trying to get your life back together while in jail and getting sober and getting back out there again. He's supposed to be sending me a few copies. But yeah, the Dan Baker episode that I posted a few weeks ago, that guy was a chaplain.
Okay.
So when you got out, were you hitting meetings when you got out?
Oh, yeah. So hitting meetings, and then I went through an IOP, so intensive outpatient, where I was the same place that I initially tried to get sober. I went back to, but this time with a completely different mindset. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, and pretty much ready. Like, I want this. This is what I'm focused on now, like more than anything. Help me get this, you
Yeah.
know?
I'm really curious. I'm gonna cut ahead about 3 years, 2 years.
Yeah, that's fine.
All
Go
right.
for it.
What happened
With the
when?
painting?
Yeah,
Is that okay?
you knew I was
Dude,
gonna.
yeah. Oh, I know. Yeah, I was waiting for that. So while I worked for Capitol Police, and this was actually like probably the most harmless thing I did at the time that turned to be the biggest fucking just shit show there was. So I've at this time I've cleaned my life up. I've
Yeah.
met a girl. Well, yeah, we're moving to Arizona to start a new life because I was sick, like I was so sick of living where I'm seeing cops I used to work with, where I'm seeing places I used to use. I'm like, dude, I need a change in latitude badly. Like this needs to happen. And she got an internship working for ASU Strength and Conditioning. So it just made sense. It was like, all right, this is perfect. I don't want to lose you. Like, girl's a rock star. I ended up marrying her. So yeah, and we just worked together. So I was like, yeah, let's go to Arizona. So moved to Arizona. I'm living there for about a month and a half, 2 months. And I get a call frantic one day from my mom. Just she's flipping the fuck out. And she was watching the Today Show. And apparently across the bottom, it scrolled ex-Capitol police officer steals $100,000 painting. And she, with the ex-Capitol police and or in Wisconsin or whatever, she had assumed, she's like, well, is this my son? Like, and she asked me about it, and I'm like, I have no idea what the fuck you're talking about. I hadn't thought about this painting for years. It had been like 4 or 5 years.
Yeah,
So
and they're saying $100,000 painting. You're like, I never
yeah,
sold shit for a hundred thousand
yeah,
dollars.
dude, exactly. Thank you.
It
Yeah,
wasn't
I'm
me.
like, no,
Somebody
I'm
else.
like, I would have known that. Like $100,000, I'm like, yeah, that would have registered on my radar. So essentially, what happened with this whole painting thing? While I worked there, they were transitioning governors. The one governor had been there for I think 8 years, and Wisconsin elected a new governor. So he's moving out of the executive residence. While he's moving out, he's purging promotional stuff, t-shirts, posters, pretty much everything that he had picked up during these 8 years. He's telling staff, okay, here's boxes. All this stuff's going to be downstairs for goodwill. If you're going to take anything, it's fine. You just need to sign this sheet saying, here's my name, here's what I took. So I waited about a week, went down, checked all this stuff out, took like a promotional mug. I think it was like a pocket knife, and then this painting was sitting in like a stack of like posters and other shit. And the painting was only like 12 by 16, so it wasn't very big. And I liked it. So my mom, I should say, was a retired art teacher. So like I liked this painting because of the frame. It had like this really cool gold ornate frame. So I'm like, shit, I'm gonna pick this up and pop this ugly picture out of it and use the frame. That's so and that's literally the last I had even thought about that painting. Like I brought it home. I think it sat in my closet for like a month or two. And then I went to go like repurpose it, and I saw it had a gallery stamp on the back. So at that time, what I should have done is basically contacted the executive residence, say, hey, I took this painting 2 months ago, saw it had a gallery stamp, it might be worth something. Instead, I hopped online, looked it up, found out it was worth maybe $2,000. So I sold it online for like 1,200 bucks and burned it. Like I said, that was like 4, 5 years before any of this comes up. Well, so now while I'm living in Arizona, they
Because that was
without
2011
yeah,
when you took.
exactly.
Yeah, because you were
Yeah,
still a Capitol
exactly.
cop.
Yeah,
You weren't
and I
a
was
UW yet.
no, and I was sober at the time too. This was before I even started using. So I was like, this is crazy. Like, there's no way that first of all, there's no way I stole $100,000 painting. Second of all, like this is absolutely insane. No one even talked to me about it. It was just like I saw this shit on the news. It's almost like, if you're a player on the team and you get traded before you even know you're like, what is this?
Yeah.
So
Which
I talked
happens.
to him.
People do
Yeah,
like you hear of athletes going like, I found out on Twitter I was traded.
exactly. So So I found out through a phone call in the Today Show that, I was likely going to get charged with this. So talked to an attorney, had to fly back from Arizona for every single like conference, things like that, because they wouldn't just let me like teleconference in. They're like, no, we want this guy back here. So did that. Eventually they decided that the painting was worth around $5,000, which was what it needed to be a felony as opposed to a misdemeanor.
Yeah, anything over
So,
499.9.
yeah. So they said they were going to press and try to get the full, basically like the full sentence they could, which was 21 years. So I'm looking at 21 years for a supposed $100,000 painting, which we know is not worth that. Or they said I could take a plea deal, but the plea deal included taking a felony. So I ended up taking the plea deal, not rolling the dice, and took the felony. That came with 4 years of probation too. So now I'm like, okay, I'm going to be on paper for another 4 years. I forget how much time I had to serve. It was around 6 to 9 months again, something like that. But I was able to do it once again all on house arrest. So successfully, well, had to move back from Arizona to Wisconsin because one of the caveats in my deal was I served my time in this county, in Dane County. So I had to move back. Moved back, did my time, and then essentially ended up doing the 4 years on probation successfully. So,
Just like staying with your mom or getting your own place
oh,
or.
staying with my wife now.
Oh, she came
Yeah,
back with you too.
yeah, she came back. Yeah,
That's awesome of her to like be like, you know
yeah,
what, I'll come back with you, and
yeah. Well, I think she saw how everything went down, and like basically we both looked at it like the DA he was salty that the first time through he didn't hit me with a felony. So when he got the chance, it
he
was
was taking
like,
that shit.
oh yeah, he was rolling with it and was
Yeah.
like, dude, this guy is gonna get jammed up. So
Yeah, because that it's almost like they want to put you in the system. It's like
yeah,
they want to, make, like you said, make an example out of you, as opposed to just like you're fucking, you're like 3 years clean and sober at this point and living your life and trying to do all the right things, and they're like, yeah, we're gonna put you back in the system anyway, though, and kind of hope that you fuck up, and you know what I mean, like, and
oh yeah.
just setting you up for failure.
And that's exactly how it felt. And it was like, all right, so it literally, part of me, JD, felt like everything that I had done to that point didn't matter. Like it was so hard just trying to like cling to the good because being forced to come back and like see all the same shit that I had just left. Like I felt like, okay, I can finally breathe again. I got this weight off my shoulders. Then to come back right back into it all on something that's like 4 years old, that I was like, man, it yeah.
I can't even imagine, bro. Like I've been, clean away from my shit for 3 years, and I can't imagine if something popped up from my past. Like I get the payday loan phone calls all the time. Like
Okay,
I did
yeah.
a lot of payday loan scams, where they don't talk to each other, and most people, they plan on paying back the payday loan people, so they only get one payday loan. But I knew as soon as you put in their request, you get flooded with phone calls from all these different companies. So I was just saying yes, yes, yes to every single one of them and just getting loaded with $3,000, like $300 a pop.
Damn.
And then I would shut down my account. And then I always did them when I knew I was losing my job. Like the
Okay.
first time it happened, I was working, I think, at H Gregg, like the retailer for like electronics. I had quit
Yeah.
Best Buy. I worked at Best Buy for like a decade on and off. I had quit there at one point to work at H Gregg, their competitor, because they were commission. And I felt like, my ego was huge. And I'm like, oh, I could fucking make a killing doing this shit. But of course, like, I'm getting high every morning.
Yeah.
And I'm getting high during work. And like, there was one point that I sniffed 430s, and then I walked into the building minutes later. And right when I walked in, I'm like pouring sweat, obviously. And manager like, hey, you want to go for a ride with me? I'm like, yeah, man, I'll get out of here. And as soon as we start driving, goes, by the way, I'm taking you for a drug test because you're definitely high.
Oh fuck.
And I was like, well, okay, but I'm not. But sure, I'll pass this with no problem. Just being confident.
Oh yeah.
Did the drug test, and then I knew it was a 5-day wait. and I knew I was going to be fired by Friday. This was
Oh
Monday.
yeah.
So by
Gotcha.
Tuesday, I was doing the payday loans. And then when they called to verify that I had employment, the answer was yes, he is
Yes.
employed. So they gave me the money, and then I would take the money out, and close the bank account. And then when they went to go get the money from me, because I knew I would get my last check in the mail, I just claimed, sorry, but I lost my job. You
Yeah.
can't come after me for the money. I lost my job. And so when I worked at a bank, did the same shit. When I was doing something else, I forget what I was doing. I think it was pest control. I did the same shit.
Yeah.
And I did it like 3 different times at like 3-4 grand a pop. But they still call me, 7-8 years later. They're still hit me up for money, and they always leave the same message. They're always like, if you don't call us back by 5 o'clock, we're gonna be sending out a warrant for your arrest. I'm like, motherfucker, I've been arrested. No one warned you. You don't get a
No.
phone call.
No.
You
Hell
don't.
no.
Hey, we're coming with the warrant. If you don't call us back, like, you don't.
No.
That is not how it works. They show up at your door. They don't want to give you any time. They don't want to give you heads up, and then they take you away.
Exactly.
Like
Yeah. That's exactly how it happens.
my worst arrest, I had a 45-minute ride back to the police station, cuffed in the back. They did not give me any kind of favors. I'm a big dude, like hands behind my back the entire time for 45 minutes doing that drive. And the only thing good about that drive was it gave my dad time to pick up my grandmom, who was going to post bail before I had to go in the county.
Okay.
Like, while I was doing the processing, they had time to hit the banking. She had just sold her shore house, so she had a little bit of money and was able to like post bail for me. But that was, I was high on Xanax, and when I did Xanax, I stole. I don't ever remember stealing anything from this house particular. I used to house sit for my old manager, and this one time I was really high on Xanax, and I was a good criminal. Like, I
Yeah.
knew how to beat the systems. Obviously, my payday loans, like, I knew how to beat the systems, and I knew how to think like you. You
Yeah.
know,
Oh
and
yeah.
I would always go to pawn shops 5 towns over, nowhere near anything if I was going to do something shady. But Xanax, fuck no. I
Fucking.
stole the shit and went right to the closest pawn shop. So obviously, it wasn't hard for them to find me. All they do is go to the closest one. Yeah, here's his ID. Yeah.
Exactly. Yup. He was just in here.
And
Here's what he found.
I
Yeah.
got lucky because that was $4,300.
Okay.
I got like fucking 700. I didn't
Yeah.
get $4,300.
Oh no. Exactly.
I got
Yeah.
like maybe $700. I think there was a cell phone in there too that, like, we worked at Best Buy. So when he was a manager, they got promotional shit like, here, take this free iPhone or whatever, take this free, Android. And I took one of them. But yeah, man, like, it was like 42 and change. So it was still a misdemeanor. So I got lucky with that one for sure.
Gotcha.
Ended up getting 6 months, a year probation, and I ended up doing 6 months of probation and getting off early because I did my community service so fast, and I wasn't drug tested because it was a theft and not a theft with drugs. So they weren't drug testing me. So they were like, we don't need you to keep coming back because you're done your community service and you paid your restitution. And that's basically why we have you come monthly, is just to make sure you do your community service and pay your restitution. If
Yeah.
you're not doing drug tests, we're going to get it expelled. I said, okay. So they got it expelled. And I was on drugs the entire time I was going to probation because I had my scripts.
Yeah.
I quit
Exactly.
smoking weed during that time in case they gave me a test. But if they ever gave me a test and I popped for Oxy or popped for Xanax, here's my script.
You had your script. Yeah.
So that's how fucked up our system is, man. That, like, one of my best friends, he got bad on pills because he got probation for weed. You get probation for weed for 5 years.
You transition.
Yeah, you have to find
Yeah.
something. He was in a horrible car accident. He needed something for his pain. And then he turned to Oxy, like, just like we all did. We were all doing 30s
Exactly.
together, man. Like, that was, what we did. And I've lost so many best friends to either still in addiction or, they don't want to be a part of recovery or, they fucking die.
Yeah. Exactly.
So many people died. Still dying. Like, it is not getting any better out there. That's the good. Do you still go to meetings?
I do. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you
Yeah.
see
I
people
still.
early on in there?
It's sometimes. It's like the meeting I go to is pretty well established and it's early. So I feel like sometimes what we'll see is like someone who has just had a night of drinking and is just coming off of that and comes to a meeting. See, I'll see a bit of that, but aside from that,
I
it's
just had a guy on from
so
your
much.
area, actually, Dan. He's 4 years sober. He was on an episode a couple weeks ago.
Okay, I'll
Skinny
have to
guy,
check that out.
but yeah, he's from Madison, I think, or he's definitely from
Yeah,
Wisconsin.
okay. If he's from
So
Madison, I might recognize
yeah,
him. So yeah.
he was definitely he was going to meetings with a bunch of old heads, and he
Okay.
talked about some guy named Brooklyn Bob. About that was that one of his, it was like an old head, like people in their 80s were going to his meetings,
Oh
like
shit.
had like
Okay.
40 years of sobriety and shit.
Gotcha.
But yeah, check that one out. It's
I
like
will for
yeah,
sure.
just because your area. But we got off track again. Let me catch up again where we are. All right. So now you do what? How much time do you end up getting for that painting?
Shit.
Oh no,
I
you
think
said you did house
yeah,
arrest.
yeah. I did the house arrest. I mean, the biggest thing was taking the felony charge, and then the 4 years paper on top of it was yeah. That's really what they tried to hit me with. And I'm sure at the time the DA thought, oh, he's gonna fuck this up. Like, there's no way he's making through 4 years of paper. And that's why they gave me it. But I was determined. I'm like, I've changed my life. I'm like, I'm gonna prove you fuckers wrong. Is really how I looked at it. Like, that was it.
And now I'm gonna also mention this in my intro that
Yeah.
you wrote a book.
Yeah.
So when did you start writing your book, and what's your book called for the listeners?
So my book's called My Life with Karma. It's a recovery memoir, and I started writing it about 2 years ago. And with my head injury, it's hard because I've lost short-term memory. So for example, I'll remember I talked to you today. I will have no idea what we talked about. It just doesn't encode anymore. So when I'm writing, I can only write about 2 to 3 sentences at a time. Then I have to go back, reread what I just wrote, try to recall that, and then add on to it. So I was writing about 1,000 to 2,000 words a week. Like, but I had to do that consistently for almost a year and a half to build the book.
Yeah, and now what is your book is basically about your life then?
It is, yeah. So it's got 32 or 33 different stories from my life, all through basically recovery. I wrote about when I detoxed at home, which was made for an interesting chapter. Just being real about that and saying, okay, this is what detox actually feels like, as opposed to what a lot of people think.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Like
And
the
just
movies do a good job, but not exactly.
no, not
Like
exactly.
they know how we keel over. They know how we
Yeah,
hold our stomach. But,
yeah,
the only movie that I've seen that's so close that's Requiem for a Dream.
yes,
When they're withdrawn and we talk about Train Spotting,
yes,
those were two movies that, could really, really put a polarized look at what addiction was like.
that's true.
And like Requiem still scares the shit out of me. I still think that's why I didn't want to do heroin. One of the reasons because of his arm when he got that
No
shit cut
shit.
off. Like, and it's people don't understand. They see that and they think that's all of us. And inside that is all of us.
Oh yeah,
We all feel that way of just like an empty shell of a person. But, we all can recover. A lot of us do recover. And, the hashtags recovery is possible. We do recover. Those are popular because it's the fucking truth.
it's this. Yep. Thank you.
Like,
Yeah,
we have to just want to be in recovery more than we want to be high.
that's exactly it.
You
And
know?
like for me too, it was all about, for example, like Karma, my dog. That's what kept me sober for a time being. It was all about finding that one thing outside of myself that I could focus on.
Your
Because
dog's name
just
was Karma?
yeah, yeah, that's what I named her. So
Oh, okay.
yeah,
So
and
you My
that's
Life with
where
Karma is your dog,
yeah,
but
exactly.
also it works. It's a double and whatever because it works on both.
Yeah.
Is your dog still with you?
She's not, unfortunately. She got cancer and passed away about 2 years ago. So it was
Yeah.
sad because I had her for like 6.5. I mean, 6.5 really good years. But one of the things that always has gotten me fucked up was that time I missed with her. You know what I mean? Like that time away. Like, I think anyone who's done any time can relate to that, whether it's from people, a dog, anything. It's just those lost hours, those lost days that it was like, fuck, man, I wish I could get those back.
Yeah, But I mean, the cool thing is you gave that dog an amazing life for the last 6.5 years of her life.
Oh yeah,
You
exactly.
know, because
Yeah,
like she probably would have been dead way before then, tied to a tree.
yeah.
Especially with
That's
those harsh
hands
winters
down.
up there. Like you guys got
Yeah,
some fucking bad winters up there. Like who knows if they kept her out there?
yeah.
How
Oh,
old
for
was
sure.
she? How old was she when you got her? When you
It
saved
was
her?
hard to tell. Like they said she was around 1.
Okay.
And it was hard for the vets to like give her a birth date because they looked at her teeth, but being chained to a tree, like her teeth were like nubbed down because she was chewing at the chain. So they gave me the rough estimate of 1 years old.
Okay. Yeah, but
Yeah,
still, that's amazing though, dude. Like that had to. It's a bittersweet thing, especially with pets. Like I had a bunch of Goldens growing up, and we had 2 die from cancer around 5, 6 years old.
yeah,
And it's a heartbreaking thing, but at the same time, like you gave them the life that they wanted.
exactly.
And yeah, that dog isn't replaceable, that one dog, but the owner makes the dog.
Yeah,
Like you can get another dog and still be a great owner and have a great relationship with that dog. That's the really cool thing about fucking dogs and not people.
yeah, that's
You
so true.
can't you can't do that with a person where
No,
you're like, all right, this person's out of my life, but I'm gonna treat you like I treated that person, and we're gonna be the same kind of deal. It doesn't work. But with
no.
dogs, they will gravitate to that kind of personality and be that dog that you kind of want them to be when you're a good owner and a loving owner.
Yeah. And the
So
coolest thing, like you mentioned it, so you had a suicide attempt, and well, many that were, you said, like interrupted, right, by your dog. So I had an attempt, it was after the head injury, and I'm with the current person I'm with now. Things got really bad. I was suffering from psychosis. So I was hearing voices, and to be real, man, I thought I lost it. I thought this is it. Now I'm gonna hear these voices the rest of my life. I can't cope. So I got a tactical knife, and I was gonna stab myself between the second and third rib and just end it. The only reason I didn't was karma at the time interrupted me. Like I'm literally sitting there looking up online where I need to stab, trying to like mark it out. I've got some hesitation cuts, and she's like, "Dad, I gotta go outside." And it was the same thing, like you said. She was too good of a dog to go inside in the house. So she's like nudging me, like just anything she can
because they
do to
don't
get my
fucking know.
attention.
Yeah.
No, no. So it gave me pause long enough that I took her outside, was able to clear my head. I think I smoked a cigarette, and I don't even smoke, like, and just kind of got myself back to a place where I was like, fuck, man, I don't want to do this. I don't want my wife to come home, find me like this. I mean, I don't want the dog to sit here. Like, all those thoughts run through your head. And it's like, nah, it just wasn't worth it. So,
It's funny you
um,
said pause. I just added this, to my studio.
okay.
The you know,
Oh, yeah,
um,
definitely, man.
one of one of our regulars and a board member here, they painted that, and I was like, I need that because like I have, that right here on my wrist,
Oh,
the
okay. Very cool.
semicolon. And
Yeah.
for those who don't, the semicolon, do you know about that?
I do. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll let you explain it, but go for it.
Yeah, yeah. So the semicolon movement started by a girl that was like, our story doesn't end. That's where the pause. That's what you reminded me of because you pause for a second, just like a semicolon in a sentence. It means the story is not over; it's going to continue. And it got a lot of traction. I mean, unfortunately, that girl that started it ended up committing suicide, which is a sad thing to think about. But still, she helped a lot of people,
Oh, for
to
sure.
not want to do it and to have that constant reminder somewhere to look at it, like, all right, the story's not over. I can pause. I can just sit in it for a second. And plus, like my first fiance did commit suicide
Oh, shit.
in 2015, bipolar schizophrenia.
Man,
So I
sorry to
mean,
hear that, man.
thank you. I blame myself for a while, and that's kind of why I kept spinning out. I was blaming myself,
Yeah.
which is kind of natural. I mean, plus everybody else was blaming me too, even her family. So I mean, I think they still do. I wanted to make amends. I've even tried to add one of her sisters on Facebook recently to like try to like, if she would have accepted it, I would have sent a message, but she never
Yeah.
did. So like, it is what it is. you know, I can be the bad guy in their narrative. That's okay. Like that's
Yeah.
how I live with it now. Like you're not always going to be the good guy in everybody's narrative, and I can accept that now. Before it was hard to accept, but like I'm the good guy in a lot of people's narrative,
Yeah.
So if I have to be the bad guy in theirs to make them feel better, then so fucking be it. Because like I'm not here to change anybody's mind. I can't bring it back. Neither can they. Just live our lives. You know.
Yeah, that's exactly it, man. And that's how I approach writing the book too. Like, I just wanted to be so transparent with it that it was like, okay, anyone could pick it up, and the minimum I wanted people to say was this guy's real. Like, this guy isn't afraid to share whatever. He's just gonna come straight at it. Because if you don't, I feel like so often in addiction, we see people that are just full of shit, like really just straight up. And they're not willing to like, not, I don't want to say tell you that, but they're just not willing to share like an authentic self with you. And I feel like until you do that, you're never going to improve your authentic self. Like, you're just going to stay stuck in that addict mindset, the same shit, because you're lying to yourself.
Yeah.
And when I wrote the book, anytime I caught myself where I'm like, oh, I'm ducking away from this, or instead I would lean into it even heavier, because I'm like, fuck it, dude, this is what I have to do to get this story out there. Like, I can't shy away. So
I like that
that's
you
what I
said.
did.
I like that you said lean into it because like that's what I'm all about. Is like you have to lean into shit. You have to just double down and just
Exactly.
like because you're not gonna be able to change anything. Like I talked about it before. I maybe here I don't know or in person with somebody recently. I definitely talked about it recently. But the first time I got tricked into smoking PCP, wet. I had a horrible trip. And then the second time I got tricked into was at a concert, and he told me after. That's what happens. People
Yeah.
you
Oh
hit
yeah.
it, and then they go,
After.
"Oh yeah, by the way,
Yup.
that's wet." So the second time it happened was at a Blink 182 concert, and dude told me I should have known it was a fucking Gatorade bottle I was smoking out of.
Oh.
And I did it, and he was like, "By the way, yeah, you're gonna trip," and I'm like, "Fuck," and I was like, "You know what? I'm just gonna lean into it. It's already happened. I'm not gonna be mad at him. I was gonna have a horrible trip, and it
Exactly.
was like raining and shit. So I left my phone. All I brought in the concert with me, my cigarettes and a concert ticket. And I was like, fuck it. Like I'm just gonna lean into it. And I had a great time at the concert. I'm not okay with what happened,
Yeah.
but I couldn't change it.
Exactly.
I couldn't undo me hitting that and inhaling. So what you have to do is just lean into it and just accept it and just move on because
Yeah.
what's happened has happened. And it's the
Exactly.
same thing for anything in life. Whatever happens, I can't make it not happen again. Like I can try to do steps that is going to prevent it from happening in the future, but I can't change what's happened already.
Yeah.
You need to accept it, and the longer you take to dwell on it, you take to dwell on it, but don't punish yourself for dwelling on it.
Yeah.
I see people all the time. They're like, "Oh, I spent all day today, just looking at my phone in bed, and I didn't do anything." I'm like, all right, that's fine. You did what you did. Put it behind you. Because if you dwell on the fact that you were dwelling all day, then you're still in the shit of it. Like
Exactly.
you have to
Yep.
get yourself out of that because there's nobody's going to help you get out of that,
No, not at all.
unfortunately. And that's why mental health is such like an important thing to talk about so you can feel comfortable to talking to other people whenever you are in that kind of like mindset of like how you felt like that you were spitting out. Like now I'm sure if you felt that way you would say, hey wife, like can we talk, like
Yeah, yeah. I mean, now like it's too, like, now I've got like a safety plan. Like, and if I put too many checks in too many boxes, I mean, we've got the understanding in my house that, okay, this is when I need to go to the hospital. Like, and hopefully with my medication, doing counseling, talking to a psychiatrist, I don't get to that point. But if I do, there's a plan now. Where in the past, it was just whatever my best thinking was at the time, and it's like, fuck, we see where that's gotten me. So
yeah,
let's leave it up to that.
and
And
plus you're in
that
the
was one of the
program
biggest
too, so
things.
that gives
Yeah.
you some support too,
Oh, for sure.
like you have a sponsor and everything that you talk to or sponsees.
So yeah, I have one sponsee right now. And I had a sponsor. Unfortunately, he relapsed about a year ago, a little more than a year ago now. And I'm not. I'm really not sure where dude's at, to be completely real with you. So
Yeah.
at this
And
point, like,
at least having a sponsee, you have that like relationship, because when you take a sponsee through the steps, you go through the
you're
steps
working
too.
it too.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yup.
So
That's
you're reading
exactly
the
it.
book with them, and
Yep.
you're, reading the messages and the stories with them. So
Yeah.
that's good then,
Oh, for
and
sure.
because you don't want to rush into getting a new sponsor. You
No,
want to
and
make
see,
sure that you find somebody that has what you want.
exactly. And that was the thing that, like, I've been, because I was really connected with my last sponsor. It was almost like it was the same thing like when Karma passed. Like, I didn't want to rush into getting another dog right away. So like, I want to fill that void, but I want it to be the right thing. Like, I don't want to just kind of act how I used to, impulsive, and just be like, here, just give me that. Let's do it. Let's run with it. Because it's like that attitude so many times just got me stuck, got me trapped. So
Yeah.
yeah,
And
man.
did you start writing the book after Karma passed?
I did. So I started writing it after she passed, and when I knew, like, so my probation ended last August. So I wanted to have all the legal shit behind me. That was like one of my own personal like goals before I wrote the book, because I'm like, the last thing I want to do is be this guy who puts out a book and is still on probation, still has legal shit going on.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I just kind of felt like I needed to figure it out for myself and say, hey, I got through this, I got to this point, before I could, try to share with others.
Yeah. That's awesome, though, dude. I'm so fucking proud of you, because that's to
Thank you,
go,
man.
like from having an abusive father, alcoholic, that's, beating the shit out of you all the time, and then to, becoming a cop, and then having all that go down to where like you're made out to be the bad guy in your own, uniform. It's like, and then you're spinning out of control. You're fucking drinking and drugs. The bipolar does not help drinking.
No.
It makes it way worse. Colleen was a bipolar schizophrenic alcoholic. So like I remember whenever I see somebody try to light a cigarette and their hands are shaking, I think of her.
Yep.
Because her, she couldn't light it without like the tremors because of the alcohol. And it's a shame, but it's the truth, man. And that's life. And I'm to get out and to get 8 years on top of going through that system again in sobriety is not an easy thing to do for your mental
Uh,
health.
no, it definitely isn't. Like I said, I think the biggest thing for me was once I finally got clean too, was figuring out that bipolar piece. Because for so long, it was like we were treating addiction, treating addiction, treating addiction. And I never felt like, I still felt off at times. I still felt like I said before, not being in the driver's seat always. And I'm
Yeah.
like, what the fuck? I'm sober. I'm not using. I'm doing what they're telling me to do. And yet, I'm still going through these episodes of mania, and then afterward I'd crash and go into these really, really dark depressive phases. And it was like, okay, there's something still not right here. This is more than just depression. And finally figuring that out once I didn't have chemicals on board, it was like, okay, now the psychiatrist can kind of do her thing, and we can get this piece in place that will help, as opposed to, okay, we're fighting multiple fronts.
Yeah.
Just really kind of narrowing it down.
I could have swore your little, like the sheet you sent me, something about police brutality.
Yeah, man. So it was, like I said, the radial neuropathy thing, when they literally cuffed and stuffed me, didn't safety lock my cuffs, because I still have problems with my wrist today. Like, on top of the brain injury, it's like I'll go to pick something up, my thumb doesn't really work right. So I just drop shit. It gets frustrating. But it was like, and that's just, it's so little, it's such a little thing, but it's like it was done intentionally. And I
Yeah.
think the way I look at it is, okay, if an officer can do that to me, arresting me in a police station, taking me to a jail, and
In
what
uniform.
in uniform, what is this guy gonna do to someone on the street that offends him? Like, and then I just think about
We
that
we
and
see
take
what
it
they do.
further.
We see what they
Yeah,
do. They fucking sit on their neck.
exactly.
Let's be
No,
real. You know what I
you're
mean?
right. Yeah.
And you know, and it's not even just there. It's going on all over the place, man. And it's a fucking shame, dude. I'm so glad that they're finally putting body cameras on people. You
Oh,
know,
you have to.
like Breonna Taylor, man. What happened to her should have never happened. You know, like dudes weren't wearing even police uniforms, and they went to go do a no-knock fucking warrant without body cameras on at 2 o'clock in the morning. Did you expect him not to shoot at you when you're breaking into his house and not
Yeah,
announcing yourself? Yeah, the guy's
exactly.
gonna like shoot at you first, and then you unload like 30 some bullets into his apartment, and you know what I mean? Like it's excessive. It's not
Oh,
even the
it
fact
is.
that you hit somebody, it's the excessive thing that bothers me. You know, because like I went to high school with somebody and they became a cop. And they were a cop in Camden because Camden's so corrupt. You now have to be a cop in Camden first for a couple of years, and then they branch you out to the smaller ones because you can't spend too much time there, or else you can get caught up in the shit, you
Gotcha.
know. And him and his partner were on trial for, police brutality a few years back because they killed somebody. They got shot at once, and then they shot the other guy 23 times. Like, I don't think you needed 23 bullets,
No,
you
no,
know?
there's no
So,
reason
and
for
of
that.
course, they got let off and they weren't, they were doing their job,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And yeah, the guy was a criminal. The guy
Yeah.
was a criminal, and the guy was posting shit about hurting cops on Facebook right before that happened. But I doubt the cops were checking his Facebook status before they were rolling up there. Now, they can just use that in court.
Yeah.
And yeah, they did do prior calls to the house before that day. Like they were there like 3 times that week. But that's not a death sentence.
No, it shouldn't be.
You
I
know,
mean, if anything, that should just scream crisis. Like, this is an individual in crisis that needs fucking help. That's what it should scream. It
yeah,
shouldn't scream, let's go over there, roll up heavy, and put some bullets in them.
yeah.
Like,
And
yeah.
I know cops, and I know how that thinking was, and I can almost hear it in my head, that conversation between him and his partner on the way out there, like, it's done tonight, fuck this shit, like, it's going down,
Yeah,
like,
or gearing up, like literally
yeah,
building each other up. Like, man, this guy's gonna be amped. What are we gonna do? Like, just building, 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 as opposed to thinking, how are we gonna communicate with this
how can we
individual?
de-escalate the situation when we
Thank you.
get there?
Exactly. That's exactly it, dude.
Yeah,
Like, where is that at that time? And that's part of what I talk about in my book too. I get into police training because I was trained in the old school warrior mentality, like where they just scream at you, you fuck up, you do push-ups until they're tired, things
berate
like
and
that.
shit.
Yeah, and I'm like, what kind of cops does that build? And that's what I ask. It's like, really, we've got to look at that. We've got to go all the way back to square one, to the training, and say, look, if we're going to let cops train cops, we've got to get the right kind of police in there, because the warrior mentality training, the I'm paramilitaristic, doesn't fucking work on a general population.
Yeah,
Like, you just end up with civilians that get killed, and it's
yeah.
stupid.
There's a kid, like, when everyone's saying defund the police, they're not saying take away their money. They're saying allocate the money for mental
To
health.
different resources.
Like,
Yep.
my wife used to work at a group home and with people with special needs, and she got the shit beat out of her. She got like 10 concussions while working there, but nobody was ever killed. She was
Yeah,
beat up by these patients, but they were just subdued. They weren't ever hurt, and they would never call the cops because the cops would fucking come in and hurt them.
exactly.
There's a kid, I'm in PA. There's a kid last Christmas or the Christmas before, 19 years old, was on the highway and called the police on himself because he was going to jump off the overpass. And when the three different cop cars that pulled up for him, they saw a pellet gun in his hand. So they rang out about a dozen bullets and killed the 19-year-old on the bridge
Who called
while it
on himself? Yeah.
while it was being recorded from somebody in traffic underneath. They were recording it, so it was all on camera, and all of them are still cops today. The same attorney that and this kid was an adopted kid at 9. He's a 19-year-old adopted kid. So he's going through a lot of confusing things at that age, from like,
Oh
where are
yeah.
my parents, why they let me go, abandonment issues. It's Christmas time, and everyone who has mental any kind of mental issues or problems knows that December is one of the hardest months to get through.
Yeah, see, you say that, and okay, holidays just ring in my head because like mine was right. I always have a hard time right around Halloween. Like I know that about myself now. It seems like no matter what, every year Halloween rolls around and either I'm in some kind of like mental state or I've got something else going on. So that's when I need to double down on like the things that keep me sober. But dude, for someone like that, like an adopted kid, 19, Christmas time, there's so many fucking factors there that aren't being considered by the police.
Yeah,
And then what they looked at, they immediately arrived on scene. They saw a gun and they saw an opportunity to shoot and they took it. I mean, that's it.
yeah, plain and simple.
Yeah.
And the same attorney that took on that fuckface in Minnesota for George Floyd, that
Oh,
same attorney,
Chauvin. Yeah.
yeah, but that attorney Crump, I think is his name is,
Yep.
he took over that case for that kid too. So
Yeah.
which is good, but who sees where that goes? It's just
Yeah.
dude, it boils my blood because exactly it's the training that's wrong. Like, and it's they put way more money into the police than they're putting anywhere else.
Yeah.
Like, where's the mental health? Like, we're a mental health facility, dude, and we're trying to do the right things. We're trying to let addicts and people that are coming here, sober or just with mental health problems, and we get no funding. You know what I mean? Like, I've applied for 2 grants, and I just found out literally a half hour before our phone call. I had to walk outside and smoke 2 cigarettes because I got denied for another one. You know, we are not getting funding for mental health. And I tried getting donations from local businesses. Guess what? They don't want to be tied to what we're doing here. Quote,
No.
they don't want to
Yep.
have our name on what we're doing. It's like, you don't want your name on me helping addicts and people with mental health issues? They're like, yeah, sorry, we just can't. I'm like, oh, but if I was a fucking stray dog or a fetus not even born yet, you'd be all about it, Like, but as soon as we're born, you can stop giving a fuck,
Yeah,
you
that's
know?
so true.
And like, all I'm trying to do is just help people, and give people a safe place to go for meetings. Yeah, we got a rainbow flag on our door, and that upsets people, like, because we have meetings for LGBTQ. We have them every week, and we have them for the youth because I don't know if you know this, but almost 70 to 80% of the youth homeless are from the LGBTQ community that are kicked out of their house.
Okay. I see, and I
So
thought you were going to hit me with something about suicide rates because I was going to say I know those are
that's
higher too.
those are higher
Yeah,
too. Yeah, that's
exactly. And
yeah,
let's be real, man. You are serving the community you're in. You're connected. You know what they need. I mean, these people come through your door, so why not give you resources? It doesn't make sense. As opposed
I'll,
to let's give it to cops who run a bullshit community policing and usually use that money for overtime. That's typically where it gets chewed up, not
oh,
actual
I read the
community
reports.
policing. Yeah.
I read that because they're all public now.
Yeah.
And people that don't know, go to look up on your municipal. You can read the breakdown of the revenue that they spend. You can read the full breakdown. How much goes to your trash? How much goes to your works? How much goes to public works? And you can read what the budget is, and you will be astonished by how much is allocated to your police.
Oh yeah.
And especially when you remember how long it takes them to show up to a call when you make a call. You're like, you're getting this much money and you're bored as shit all day and it still takes you this long to get here?
Yeah.
Like, how is that?
Yeah,
And
exactly.
it's just, it's just one of those things. And, I can't make people change. And I'm not going to be able to make anyone change. And I can't change anyone's mind. I can't, what's happening is happening. All I can do is try to be on the right side of shit, and that's put my best foot forward, and it's exhausting, man. It
It
can be
really is.
mentally exhausting and physically exhausting, but it's a lot better of a life than it was before.
Oh, hands down.
I'd
Exactly.
much rather have to scrounge for change every day now and just, at least we have food stamps, so that's good. um, but like the unemployment's about to run out,
Yeah.
and we've been floating by on my unemployment, and that's about to run out, the federal one on September 4th. And then we're not going to have any income as a family. We have a 7-year-old, and that's just real life. Luckily, we got rental assistance to cover our home rent for a few months, so that's paid till December. But
Okay.
like my wife just got diagnosed with MS. We got to find another place to live because we're on a second and third floor apartment, and MS has not been good for her body
No.
and get up the stairs and everything. So yeah, man, I'm trying not to spin out because it's an extremely frustrating thing to not know where you can live, not know how you can live somewhere new when you don't have any money coming in or any income to buy or rent or anything. But the cool thing is, I have no urge to get high or drunk whatsoever. I
Awesome.
know that that will not fix my problem. I
No,
know that it will not give me the enlightenment. It won't give me any answers. It
no,
won't, I can't even, it won't work. I need
no,
meditation,
no.
prayer and meditation, and talking to other people. Like, doing this podcast helps so much because I just get to talk to other people. And then
Yeah.
doing the meetings, I run like we have 4 or 5 meetings a day here, and I probably run 2 or 3, if not 4 of them sometimes all day. And that helps me too, keep me grounded. Those things I need, those things I want, those things can probably help me get out of this eventually, and help my family get out of this. But the last thing that has been on my mind is getting higher drunk. And that's to me a fucking, that's all credit to 12 steps, honestly, I think, and lifted of that obsession. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like I was lifted of that obsession for sure. Because I don't need it. It's not going to help me.
No,
My
man.
problems are still going to be my problems.
Exactly. And I think too for you and me and other people that have been through it, dude, that's a path we've gone down. We know what's at the end of that path.
Yeah.
Like you don't need to keep revisiting that shit because
Jails,
it's
institutions, and death.
there you go. Perfect. You couldn't have said it better because that's what is at the end of it.
Yep.
And it's for me like there's no reason to ever go back because of even with the brain injury, even with battling disability, and some of the other stuff I go through, it's like, fuck man, I still don't want to backpedal. I still don't want to relive what I've already done. It's like I know where I've been, so I want to see where I'm going. I don't want to just go backward.
Yeah.
And that's
Yep.
huge.
Awesome, man. Again, I appreciate you coming on, and we talked for
Yeah.
longer than an hour, so
Yeah, we did.
sorry, not sorry.
Sorry.
No,
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 not at all.
I like when they go run late because like when I go to edit, I might have to take out a bunch of stuff.
Yep.
So depending on how it looks when I'm editing, so I like when it goes
Yeah.
long. So really, like
Very cool.
my Devin one that was an hour and like 45 minutes was actually 2.5 hour conversation.
Oh, dude, that was awesome conversation, by the way. That was the one I listened to yesterday when I was hitting
Yeah,
you up, and it was just like because between the two of you, with the history you have, like you, both of you are so real, and it
yeah,
was just like, yup, I can relate. Yup, I can relate. Like just sitting here, I'm like, this is what I needed to hear today because I understand it, and people are talking my language,
yeah.
as opposed to so often, like I said with you before, I had that one podcast that just fell flat, but that's because dude's talking to me about the business of writing books.
He's reading
And
questions off of a sheet,
thank
and
you.
yeah,
And it's like, man, this
I
is
don't
just
like
I
doing that
can't be
shit.
authentic. I can't be authentic in this stage. Like
Yeah.
it's so hard. So yeah, thank you.
Check out Josh. Josh is somebody that I interviewed right before Devin. I think a couple before her. He did time in jail too,
Okay.
as an alcoholic at 19. And I even talked to Devin about him at one point too. He was painting in jail. But
Oh yeah.
you'll really enjoy that interview. It was another marathon, hour and a half something interview, but it
Gotcha.
was like I was on the edge of my seat. You know what I mean? Like he had me going. So
That's
it was
awesome, man.
that's when I knew that it was a good interview. Like when like I was just like not talking and he did most of the talking. I was like, all right, that's a good one. You
Yep.
know what I mean? Like I bumped other interviews to put his up first,
Yeah.
because it was such a fun interview. But now I do it differently. Now I interview as many people as I can and I put them on Patreon and I roll them out weekly for free on YouTube and shit.
Very
So
cool.
I'll get you a link regardless because I'm gonna plug it for Patreon by like Wednesday.
Okay.
Like I'll take a clip from ours and like something it'll probably be something from like the dark part of it just to get
Oh,
people
of
like
course.
like,
Yeah.
oh shit, he stole a painting, and like
Yeah.
really the story
Oh
is
yeah.
is barely part of it.
I know, yeah,
So
but that's the one, like that's the thing that when and this is what I ran into too after that, like whenever I apply for a job, dude, anyone Google searches me, that's the first shit to come up.
it sure
Like what
is
yeah,
that
exactly.
that and a guy with the same name as you that's missing right
Who
now in Ecuador.
Yup. That's exactly.
Because I
So,
just Googled you yesterday or the other day because I wanted to talk to you. I wanted to hear
yeah,
about, and I was like, all right, I'm breaking my own rule. I'm going to fucking Google them. And I don't ever do that before an interview because, especially when I don't know the person, I want to be authentically, but like I had to know more.
yeah,
And then, yeah, I saw that right away. And I was like, wait, is he the missing guy in Ecuador? No. Keep on track. You stole the painting? Holy shit. All right. I
yeah.
love art thieves. Let's do this shit.
I know.
Like,
I just, dude, and personally, like I've told this story so many times. I wish it was something cooler. Like I wish it was like no, but honestly, like I was working overnight and I had this elaborate plan and I painted a you know what I mean? Like
yeah.
but it's like no, dude, it was
Yeah.
on the floor with Goodwill donations and I took it. Like it's so sad because that's how it shakes out. But
Did you see
whatever.
there's a documentary on Netflix called This Is a Robbery?
No, I
And
haven't
it's
seen that.
all about these guys that robbed an art museum in Boston back in the early 90s.
Okay.
And the first episode is worth it, but then like you don't get a resolution. Spoiler alert. There's no resolution. So
Really?
like it's an annoying thing to be like, well, who fucking did it?
Yeah.
Because like you don't know. But still, it was pretty cool though how they set up the sensors and showed like how they run from room to room and how it was an inside job possibly because shit was missing from a room that sensors didn't go off in, all that kind of stuff. So,
Yeah.
and plus like Ocean's 11 was and 12 and 13, I think of those movies. And
Oh,
then
really?
one of my favorite TV shows is Psych.
Oh, yes, dude.
And
Hands down.
one of like some of the best episodes are when Carrie Ells, from fucking Robin Hood and Men in Tights, and obviously, my wife's gonna go Princess Bride, her favorite
Yep,
movie.
there you go.
He plays an art thief that becomes friends with Sean and Gus, and is so funny on the show whenever he pops up. And so whenever I think of art thieves, I think of him now. And
Nice.
look at now you.
Yeah, there you go. Perfect. I've joined the ranks of the art thieves, so
Yeah,
that's
except
even, it's
yours was
funny.
Goodwill.
I know, right? It's even on my LinkedIn profile, so because it was,
Art thief.
yeah, I put international art thief because I thought it sounded like more like mystical and like,
Yeah.
oh shit, yeah. Because I was like, fuck it, I get asked about this so much, I might as well just put it out there.
Lean into it.
Because
Like we said,
exactly, bro,
you
exactly.
take ownership and then no one has control over it but you.
That's
It's
exactly
like
it.
anything else in life. As soon as you
Yeah,
take ownership of it, you're in control again.
yeah,
Other than that, it's spinning.
yeah.
So I think it's
Always.
international art thief. That's fucking
Yeah,
hilarious.
yeah. It's like, why not?
Yeah, fuck it. You're not like you're
Yeah.
working or anything anyway right now. You're just
And that's exactly it.
yeah. No
So,
one. If anyone Googles it, they'll have a nice laugh at me. Like fuck it, and maybe you meet somebody that wants to hear another book from you.
yeah,
You
that's
know,
true.
you
That's
know,
true.
just because you wrote one doesn't mean you want to write another.
No, there's a good chance I'll write a second one. I've got a guy that I know really well who was one of the original Latin Kings from Chicago, like the original OG, still alive. And he got out of the gang life. So I really want to do his memoir next. I think that would be full of some
Yeah,
very interesting stories.
yeah.
Yeah,
If you ever tell him you're on a pod and he wants to do a pod, you let him know who to go to for that.
I
I
will.
will
I
get some
will.
good stories out of that. Holy
Oh,
shit.
I'm for sure.
I'm
Yeah.
waiting to talk to a biker this weekend coming up. He was a 38-year alcoholic and addict while he was in a biker gang out in California.
Whew.
So, yeah, that's who I'm interviewing soon this weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That should be amazing. I can only imagine some of the tales from him.
Yeah,
Seriously.
my sponsee now, he grew up in the pagans basically because his dad was in the pagans or
Mm,
still is in the pagans.
wow.
So, and he got into meth in his early teens, my sponsee, and he's clean for the first time since ever. 15-year meth addict, and he has 2 months clean now. And the other night was a real eye opener for him because no one showed up. Well, people showed up to 8 o'clock meeting, and my pancreatitis was acting up, and it was all women, and well, no, not all. Well, it was two women and a them and a them. They them,
Okay. Yeah. Yep.
and I want to make sure I get that right. And so they were having the meeting, and I was like, you know what, they can have their meeting. I'm gonna head out. And as soon as I left, I got home, and luckily we live right around the corner. My wife called me, said, "Hey, blah blah blah's here, and can you come back?" And I don't want to say his name. And
Yeah.
he, he likes to do speedballs, heroin, and fucking speed all the time. And I was like, "Is it bad? Like, can you tell him to go?" Like, I went home, and she was like, I was like, never mind. I know what that means. All right, I'll be right there.
Yeah.
And as I was getting out of my car, my sponsee, his mother-in-law lives a block down, and he was
Okay.
outside there smoking a cigarette. And I was like, "Hey, man, I need you. You got to come
Yeah.
down." So he's like, "All right." And he's that kind of guy that's loyal. He's like, didn't even go tell his girl. He's like, "All right, let's go." And we walked down, and I was telling him, I was like, "This is the dude that we saw a couple weeks ago that show up," because he hadn't seen him since. And I was like, he's going to be high. So just be ready for that.
Yeah.
And we were sitting there in the meeting. This dude's just like dipped out the entire time. And then he'd wake up, and then he'd be all like fucking robotic, like a marionette. It was like a puppet, with his body because of the speed. It kept upsetting.
Yeah.
And my buddy just like shaking his head. He's like, "I'm so glad I'm done with this." That's what he kept saying. Like, "I'm so glad I'm done with." And we were talking this morning about it again, and he was like, "Dude, that was such a great eye opener for me."
Oh, for sure.
To see what addiction, to see what I used to look like that. That can't be taught. Like that you can't read that in the book.
No.
And he was like, that was really good for me to see. Like, I needed to see some shit like that. And because it wasn't like a friend, it was somebody that he didn't know an addiction.
He didn't know, and he's just seeing this guy literally on the nod right in front of him. Yeah, man. I tried to even write about that in my book, like with the way I was feeling. And I just said, even a bobblehead, like I could be compared to a bobblehead at times because that's how it was. It would be, I would just be out, but because of the supplements I was taking with the mod shit, all of a sudden I'd pop back and then just right back
Not
in.
out
It was
again.
like, yep, exactly, dude.
Yeah, so don't gotta do that anymore.
No, hell no.
I see my dog do it all the time. She's always trying to stay awake through shit. And she just nods. She
Yeah.
used to nod out in the backseat of my car when I would drive the 2 hours to Jersey to pick up, pills. She was so good in the car. She would just sit and just want to watch the cars go by. But she would want to stay awake the entire time. And all of a sudden I would hear her like smacking into the side of the windows and shit because she's falling asleep in the back of the car. So
and fighting that,
yeah. But
damn, man.
all right, man. Thanks again,
bro.
dude. I really appreciate talking to you. I'll let you know when it's all up and running and everything. But have a good day, man. I'll talk to you.
Sounds good. You too,
right, see you, bud.
See you, man.
See ya.